Jefferson was our third-born child, and from the very earliest days showed a great intellect and a great focus and interest. He was very unusual from any other child I'd ever been around, and I'd spent a lot of time teaching children. He taught himself to read very young, and at the age of 3 was reading by himself and would entertain his high school-aged brother and sister by doing algebra problems. Early on, they told us that he was off the charts in his vocabulary, in his understanding, in his attention span. This is all at the age of 4 when he was first officially tested, and then again at the age of 5. They told us that he had the one area where he was below his age level was in an area called visual processing, and they explained to me what that was. And they said that they would continue to look for it, but it was an anomaly compared to all of his other results. When he was ready to start kindergarten, he was reading at a 2nd grade level, and again doing math in his head that was many years ahead of what he should be doing. When took him for his kindergarten physical, we learned at the very end that he seemed to have a vision problem. He couldn't see the chart to read the letters when in fact he was able to read books. We were sent to the chief ophthalmologist, who became our friend. He spent a lot of time with Jefferson, and finally sent him for a referral to the top pediatric ophthalmologist internationally. We went to that doctor's office a number of times, and he ultimately said that Jefferson had severe astigmatisms in both eyes, and gave us a glasses prescription for 2200 vision. And we were surprised to think that Jefferson could have learned to read when he had such poor vision, but we're excited to think that we had solved that problem. Jefferson continued to show exceptional intellect and talent across a multitude of areas, though he was always extremely clumsy. He had not yet been able to catch a ball. Even though we would warn him it was coming, he couldn't find the ball before it fell through to his lap. He was very afraid of jumping out of a tree or jumping off of a jungle gym. He didn't have the ability to ride a bike or he was just clumsy. He was a clumsy kid, but he loved reading, and he loved books, and he loved making people smile. We tried to find lots of different activities that could engage his brain. When he was in 2nd grade, he ended the year reading at a 2nd grade level, and I asked the teacher, I said, that's really a problem for us. And because he hasn't progressed from the age of 4, he was reading at a 2nd grade level. And she said that before they could give any academic intervention, it would have to be 2 full years behind. And so we started looking for answers, because we were not willing to let him get 2 full years behind before we found an answer to the problem. We started going to academic specialists, reading specialists, learning specialists, doctors of all sorts, pediatricians and specialists, testing endlessly, looking for what might be going wrong, because he continued to struggle in near work, in seat work, as they called it in school. And ultimately, we were encouraged to homeschool him. He learned auditorially, he could memorize anything he heard, and so he could memorize vast amounts of information. And he loved to read, and he loved stories, but got increasingly frustrated. He seemed to feel that the world was always playing tricks on him, that he would see something and then it would not be there, and then it would show up again. And of course we just thought he was entertaining us. He would tell us things like, as he tried to read a musical score, that the letters marched across the page like an ant marching on the page. And we said, of course, that's what the notes look like going up and down. And he said, no, they're moving on the page. And of course we told him they weren't moving, it was just the way that the music was written. So he continued in school, continued to have superior intellect, continued to grow intellectually because we fed him auditorially, while we continued for more than a dozen years to look for answers. Jefferson became, when he reached 8th grade, he suffered so that year and continuing on, because he knew something was desperately wrong and he couldn't name it, and he looked to us and to teachers, and nobody could help him to know what was wrong. But no matter how hard he worked, he could not finish his schoolwork in a reasonable amount of time, and his grades would show he would continue and continue until it was accomplished and mastered, but because it was past a deadline, it would be a failing mark. And so he decided he would give up on school. At one point he decided he would give up on life, and he ended up needing psychiatric care in an adolescent hospital. because he couldn't make sense of his world. When he came out of the hospital, he went to, again, a private school where he would be in small classes because, again, everybody recognized that he had intellect far above superior level, and yet that his ability to finish schoolwork was far below an average level. A friend continued to tell me that year, she said, "I know somebody who I think can solve your problem, and his name is Dr. Todd Davis, and he's a developmental optometrist." She explained to me what that was, and I told her I didn't think Jefferson, who by that age was almost 6'4" tall, and was thoroughly done with any idea of another doctor, another test, or parents who would meddle in his life and try to get him to find yet a solution that we'd been looking for at that point for 12 years. Finally, we were able to coerce him after my friend had begged me to go week in and week out. From September until April, I made the appointment, and we went to see Dr. Davis. My son was not happy to be there. He was doing this as a last request of ours before he said he was ready to leave home. And at age 17, Dr. Davis walked in and was able to get him to sit up in a chair and to look at him and to respond. And within minutes of time in the evaluation, Dr. Davis had Jefferson sitting forward and showing interest, something we hadn't seen in a couple of years. And Dr. Davis asked him a variety of questions and was able to get him to see that Dr. Davis was looking at things that nobody else had ever looked at. And then Dr. Davis put on prisms, and Jefferson leaped back, and Dr. Davis asked him, "Jefferson, what did you see?" And he said, "Your nose just popped out of your face." And Dr. Davis looked at me and said, "I can heal your son." Something we had looked for 12 years. My husband and I didn't believe it, but we told our son we would bring him back again to see if Dr. Davis could in fact find out what was wrong and heal it. We went immediately and ordered the glasses. Jefferson wanted to order them that day, which we did, and picked them up. And when he got them from the ophthalmologist or from the optometrist, from the optical shop, he couldn't believe what he was seeing, how differently he was seeing. He went to Dr. Davis for 54 weeks to his vision therapists, and there was a day when he woke up. It was a difficult time because, as I call it, it was like sandpapering his brain. And there were times when the therapy was so hard the next day that he would be almost like the have the flu, and he was trying to finish school. But there was a day his senior year when he woke up and he called me into his room and he said, "Mom, I see all of this back here. I've never seen it before." And for the first time he had peripheral vision, and he was able to catch a ball, and as he said, "I could have been an athlete." And we said, "Of course you still can, you're just 19. But he credited Dr. Davis with giving him what no one else had been able to give him, with all of the special tests and specialists, the special classes and the accommodations. Dr. Davis was able to give him the key, the answer to why his abilities couldn't be matched by his coursework. And at that point he was able to bring them to the same level, and he was able to graduate receiving special recognition for being the top in 2 of his classes. And that was something that took us 12 years to find. And so from that day until this, I promised Dr. Davis that when anybody crosses my path who has a child like Jefferson, a parent who is looking for answers, that I would make sure and share this story and be as insistent as my friend Nancy was with me about getting Jefferson into treatment, and that I would share for him and for his office that they are people who know how to find the answers that other specialists can't find.